We're talking tonight with Cecil Lalas, an old friend of mine and fight trainer. Cecil, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jay. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a lot of years, a lot of years.
Yeah,
Used to
I've known you for 34 or 33 years. Which one is it?
30,
I think 33.
34,
34. Okay.
34. I wrote a column into the paper, and then I think you called me after writing it. Called me, or how'd that work?
I think you actually found my name on the internet, and
There was no internet back then.
I thought you meant just recently.
No, 77.
What?
We...
Alzheimer's? I don't have Alzheimer's.
We've both had a lot of fights, haven't we?
You ended up, I guess, coming to the gym?
Down the rec center, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's how we met. And you wanted to inquire. I think you were already boxing, right?
No, I had stopped long before that, and I just wanted to come down and help. Before I knew it, you had me in the ring.
Yeah, we had a lot of sparring sessions. It was good. I remember there were several young men that were pretty decent, and the time that we set up that exhibition bout, the rec center, and tried to get it some publicity, we were training for some fights in Tampa that we were going to have. Remember that?
Oh yeah, yep.
You fought that night, and we had a song play as you went into the ring. Nobody does it better. You
remember that? No, that was your idea.
Yeah.
That was your idea because you seen it played in a Muhammad Ali fight.
Okay. All right. I don't remember that part, but you're probably right.
Yep.
Yeah. I think you won that night. Was it TKO? You cut the guy. Yeah. Mike. What was his name? Mike.
I forget. We both had a lot of fights. So there's going to be a lot of things in this interview we're going to forget. But that was back in the day when fighters were...
We're having an interview? My wife was telling me we're having an interview.
I thought we were just talking. Anyway, so how is Julie as a caretaker?
She grinds my medicine up in a bowl of oatmeal.
Anyway, yeah, what's been going on in your life these days?
Well, we recently we closed down a nonprofit organization that we had running for 9 years. It was the Ambassador Boxing Club. It was a Christ-centered program that we used as a tool to get young people off the street and get them involved in some short-term goals, which in turn would turn into long-term goals. And had a lot of success with some locals here, and really enjoyed the time that we spent with not just the young fighters, but with the families, the mothers and the fathers, who many times would bring them there because they weren't having a lot of success with their behavior. They were a lot of at-risk kids, and they needed some direction and some parameters. So we really enjoyed that. We ended up with about 4 state champions. In fact, a young gentleman named Jose Alonso, they call him Cello Man. He's super middleweight, and he's just had another fight in Tampa. Trying to think, it was I think a week or 2 ago, and that was his 12th professional fight, and he's 12-0, and he's the one that started when he was 16 years old down here, and now he's 33, excuse me.
What was that gap in his life as far as starting at 16 and 34 now?
Well, started when he was 16. He ended up, he came walking up in the driveway, which is where we began the boxing club. We had a 40 by 40 tent in our 1.5 acre property. And underneath that tent, we had a boxing ring that had some history. Mike Tyson had fought in it. Roberto Duran had fought in it. Several world champions had fought in the ring. And we got that from a gentleman here in West Coast Florida that had 4 boxing rings, and one of them was the one that we got. And my dad was still alive at that time, and he wanted to buy it for the club, so he bought it for the club, and we ended up using that for many years for sparring, and we actually took it to shows that we had at the Armory. And getting back to Jose, he came walking up in the driveway, kind of sideways with his pants pulled down and his hat on sideways too, and he had a little bit of an attitude, and introduced himself, and my name is Cello, and he was a pretty tough kid. He was a street fighter, and he wanted to let me know that. And I said, okay, well, what do you want? What do you want from this club? What do you want to do? He says, I want to become a world champion. Well, so you first have to be an amateur before you can be promoted to pro. And then we can talk about champion later. Well, he got in the ring that night. We got him all signed up and his papers with USA Boxing done, with your insurance and all that. And I put him in the ring with a boy named Chris Hott, Hott. And he was a white boy that had pretty good talent. He had been with us probably 6 months. And him and Jose sparred, and he spanked Jose that night. And it kind of brought Jose to a reality that maybe he wasn't as good as he thought he was, but we all saw the potential in him. He had a large amount of heart. He was very aggressive, and he just needed to learn how to channel that and box. Mm-hmm. He was a slugger, he was the kind of kid that you would see at the park. And he carried 2 pair of boxing gloves over his shoulder at the park. And he'd walk up to the biggest guy and say, I'll bet you $25 I can beat you. And then put the gloves on him. And that's how he made money. And so he wanted to come and test himself. And he realized that what he had at the time wasn't what he thought he had. And he progressed quite a bit. Very hard-headed and hard to train sometimes. But the fact that he had so much potential was very refreshing, and we built on that. He was with us until he became the Golden Glove State champion. In fact, Chris Hott also won the middleweight Golden Glove State championship. They both did, and they both declined to fight each other, and they didn't go to the nationals. That was something that I thought they really should have taken advantage of. But because they were teammates and they were friends, they didn't want to fight each other. So even the USA Boxing president at the time was Nick Cemento. He said, I think a lot of that, he says, it's not something you have to do if you're on the same team. We can. That's how they both ended up splitting the title. So it's pretty neat.
Wow.
But he just now started fighting again. He went 11-0 as a pro, had a bad ankle fracture, required plates and pins and screws and all that, and he was out for 8 years.
Wow.
And he just his comeback fight, which kind of reminded me of you a little bit, and because you're coming back, right?
Yeah, 55. I'm coming back.
That's what I heard.
We'll discuss that.
He came back, and I just want to encourage you. He came back and he won his first comeback fight. So he's 12-0 as a pro. He actually won the WBA super middleweight Federer championship, and that's when he got hurt. At one time, he was going to be scheduled to fight Jeff Lacey, and somehow that got postponed or delayed. I don't know if it was him or Lacey, but I know Lacey had fractured his hand real bad, his left hand, and he had it all in a big steel, kind of like one of those things that you have on your head when you break your neck.
Yeah, yeah.
When he shattered his left hand, they call him left hook Lacey, and he hit the guy so hard that it shattered his left hand. So that fight is something that still might happen, strangely enough.
Wow. So, listen, fighters age differently today than they did years ago.
Yes, they do. 30s now are our 40s. And 40s are our 50s. So I'm 55, you're 55. It's like, that's like 110 when you put that together.
Now,
That would almost be like getting in a ring with a guy with a walker.
well, let me ask you something. What is the hard thing about training fighters today? What is the big problem with them?
Discipline. Discipline is the biggest problem. Everybody wants to come in, and this is the thing that I saw predominantly throughout the 9 years that we had the gym open. They would come in and they wanted all the benefits of being great, famous, or even a hometown hero without the dedication and commitment. They didn't realize how hard it was, because when you're in with a boxer that has not just technique and not just skill, but with conditioning and intellect, you're in with a whole different animal. You know, the guys that come in, I'm a street fighter.
Yeah,
I'm a street fighter. Yeah. Well, I used to sit down with them at the desk and I would tell you that's really good and that's nice, but let me share something with you. A boxer is a street fighter with a degree. So you need to train. Okay? You need to train.
I've never heard it put that way before. That's excellent.
Well, a boxer can do anything a street fighter can do, except he's got discipline, he's got technique, he's got conditioning, and all kinds of things that are going in his favor. One thing that I can say is that you're in my generation really didn't experience this whole MMA thing. So that's a whole different animal. When we were coming up, that was what we would call like girl fights and, down wrestling. And I don't know, how do you feel about MMA? I like it. I think it's good, but I think that they have not yet seen the effects that it's going to have on the fighters with the length of time it's been around.
Yeah.
A knee to the head is just a whole lot different than a fist to the head.
You put two fighters in there that are equal in skills, it becomes like a good chess game. I don't find that in MMA.
A lot of it has to do with power and explosion.
Yeah, and who gets the first best shot off.
Right. I think when you look at Anderson Silva, what a tremendous boxer he is. He knocks everybody out. I mean, you've got people in there that just look so much more powerful than him, and he still beats them, knocks them out. And he's known for his submissions too. So, I'm kind of back and forth on the whole thing, but I just don't like the danger involved, and I guess the lack of regulations and rules. I know there are rules and there are regulations. One thing I can say that I like about it is that the rules are the same across the board in every state. Unlike boxing, which I think is a flaw.
Let me ask you another question. Was I a disciplined fighter?
I think so. I think, there were times when, you didn't want to do your road work. There's like a lot of us don't do our road work, but you did kind of pride yourself in being in condition. I don't think you ever really had a problem with your wind, did you?
Well, I would always run in the morning, and then when I get to the gym, all of a sudden, Trainer Lalas would decide, well, before everybody gets in a ring, let's go for another 5-mile run. I already did my running in the morning. And then I would work the bags, and then I would come to the gym, and, and every once in a while, you'd mix it up on us. You'd catch us off guard. Well, we're going to do this. Well, we're going to do that. But I will admit, you were one of the toughest. I've had other trainers before, they tried to appease the fighter so that the fighter would stay with the club. You were the type of trainer, you don't do it my way, there's the highway. Get out. So, you were like a drill sergeant, and a lot of that probably comes from you were in the military. I remember one night you told me in training, if you don't start throwing the right hand, we're going to tie your left arm so that you have no choice.
Yeah.
So, that was a shakeup.
It's the opposite. I usually did the opposite. I would usually want people right hand because all they want to do is throw right hands. In fact, the most problem I had with fighters all the way through the time that we had our gym was they wanted to go right hand crazy and they didn't want to jab. But you wanted to jab all the time. And you were okay with that. And so